You have your tool, you have your frame, you stretch your fabric. Now we get to design, the fun part. There are 3 ways to do a design. Your first one is going to be freehand. My first piece I ever did was freehand, and it was a lot of fun picking yarns from your heart and seeing where your design took itself as you worked. With that said, it's the only time I've ever done a freehanded design. Since then, I usually almost put it on a piece of paper and transfer it to my fabric, or I will draw on the fabric. My one suggestion if you're going to freehand is that you think far enough ahead to kind of see where your heart's going to take you in your design. So if you want to do a triangle, I recommend thinking far enough ahead to draw the outline of your triangle once you know that's where it's going to go. And the reason for that is the fabric has lines on it that you think that you could use as a guide, but once you stretch it onto your frame, you pull it really, really tight in lots of different directions, so it's almost impossible to get straight lines every single time. So if you draw your triangle on there, it's a better chance of you actually getting a straight triangle line for your design, and it would just look a lot sharper. The second option is using your stretched fabric as a blank canvas and drawing your design on the fabric itself. You will cover up anything you draw on this piece of fabric with your yarn as you work. So you could make a million different lines on here. So if you mess up your sketch, you can just make your new sketch line and follow that line instead, and you won't be able to see it in your finished piece. So you, in essence, can draw your design on your fabric each and every time. The third option is to have your design on your piece of paper. You sketch a design on a piece of paper, or you print a design off. And then you transfer that piece of paper, that design on the paper, to your fabric before you start punching. Before I teach you how to transfer your design onto the fabric, I'm going to talk a little bit about a top stitch versus a back stitch. And the reason for that is you work on different sides of your canvas, and so you would then thus transfer your design on a different side of your piece. So this is what I call a back stitch. You work from the back. So I worked on this side, and my finished piece is the loops on the front side. My loops are the finished piece that I wanted it to look like. A top stitch is when you punch on the top of your piece. So this is a top stitch design, and as you can see, they're flatter because they're the top stitch. So it's the same stitch, but this, I wanted my stitch that I worked on to be on the back side, so my pretty side was the loops. This, I wanted the side that I worked on to be my pretty side, so this is just the back side of a piece in essence, but for me it was my top, so that's why I call it a top stitch, because your finished piece is on the top. And then you see the loops on the back side, they're still there, but they're just not as pretty when I did the top stitch the way I did it. So before you transfer your design, you're gonna wanna say, do I wanna do the top stitch design? Or do I wanna do the back stitch design? Do I want my loops to be my pretty side, or do I just want to basically color with yarn? And from there, that's when you will decide which side your piece is going to be on. So for this piece, I'm going to transfer this to this, and I want my, it's going to be a back stitch, so my pretty loop sides are going to be on my pretty front side. So to do that, you lay your design on the front as if it were finished, so you basically, so you know what it will look like. So this is what I want it to look like to begin with, so that's, I lay it so it's pretty. And then from here, you just tape it onto tape the paper to your fabric. So it stays, essentially. And then I take this over to my window, my patio door or a window in the house, and I will actually put this up against the window so you can see the light through the window and you can see your lines really easily. So you can see the lines through the fabric, and the window essentially is a light box. If you have a light box, you can use that. I always just use my window. And you just hold it up to the window, and then you draw your lines. You trace the lines, oopsies, onto your fabric. Like so. And you have transferred your design, and then you take your piece of paper off, and you'll be able to start punching from the back side because it's a back stitch. I want my pretty side. You're gonna work from the back for your pretty side to be your loops on the front.